Sierra and welcome back to a brand new video. That is not the right kind of back, girl. Hi guys, I'm KAYLA Sierra and welcome back to a brand new video. So I'm gonna be completely honest. This video is being filmed on Friday. That last video was filmed on Wednesday. So it's only a day in between, and truthfully, I was gonna record this yesterday, but I had somewhere to be after I finished working, and I was just like, I don't want to feel rushed and everything, but it was definitely like, you're finna do this video before the end of the week. So one night before I went to bed, I'm pretty sure it was at the top of this week, probably like Monday or Tuesday, one of those days, I was going over some things. Over this past weekend, I was with some of my friends, and we were talking about, books and romance and everything, since they know that I'm such a big fan of reading and I love romance and everything. So they were asking me, like, what kind of books did I read? And I was honest. I was like, I really want to get into more like clean romance and even like Christian romances. But I'm like, if I can find Christian romances where it's not like Amish times or the women like have rights, then like I can get into that. But for me as a Black writer, I really want to support Black authors a lot more, but then also Black Christian romances. Like we got to do better. So I decided, I was like, we're just gonna look them up. I searched up Black Christian romances on Google, and I found a bunch that I found interesting and I was able to put on hold at the library. I actually have another one that I need to go get after I picked up the other two on Wednesday. And this book in particular was not available with like the physical copy, so I had to download the Kindle version. And that book is Faithful by Kim Cash Tate. This is, firstly, I just want to say it's a story with 3 women. I'll be completely honest. I think by the time I had gone through the chaos, first of all, guys, went through the chaos of trying to like download it, but then also trying to get it on the Kindle, because I didn't remember my Amazon password, so I couldn't log in, and I was switching between my phone and it was a whole lot. But we were able to get it. That's what I should get at. And so I started reading it actually, I believe on Wednesday. Like after I recorded everything, I started reading it that day, and then stayed up and finished reading it. Cause it's only 28 chapters. And since it's such a short book, I was able to finish it that night. And that's why I was like immediately like, okay, YouTube video, like sit down and record. So here is my book review of Faithful by Kim Cash Tate. The Kindle version of Faithful is 319 pages. I already said I read it in just a few hours, and I gave it 4 stars. This story revolves around 3 friends, Sid, Dana, and Phyllis, and their journeys with themselves as friends, but then also individually within their relationships and their walk with God. But starting us out, I have to say that the story is well written in how Phyllis and Dana and Sid, all their relationships, and how they really just like surround each other in like fellowship and love and just like prayer. I think that was probably like my favorite part of this book, was like watching all of them pray over each other, because that's how me and my friends are. Like me and my friends, like when we get together, like we're gonna pray over each other, we're gonna like talk about whatever we're going through and everything like that. Like we're gonna be sisters in Christ, like always. And so seeing that on paper was so refreshing. But then also these girls are like, they're not my age, like they're up there. And I don't mean up there like as if that's like a bad thing on age, but no, like they're more mature. I believe Sid, she's turning 40. I'm not sure how old Dana and Phyllis are, but these are older women, old enough to, at least Dana and Phyllis are the 2 married one with kids. Sid is the only one who is unmarried and doesn't have any kids. The story starts out with Sid. It's the day before her little sister's wedding, and she's contemplating, I'm the big sister and my little sister's getting married before me. She's thinking about like how she's prayed for so long and like basically set this plan for her life, like get married by this age, have kids, and then I'm gonna get my body right, and just all this stuff, like where they would live, and even like moving into like a certain town or certain part of the city because of like the school district and everything, like basically setting up her life to like have the marriage and the kids and everything, and to now be 40 years old and being the maid of honor to her little sister's wedding, and like not having any fruition of the things that she's been longing for, what she's been desiring for, what she's been praying for, has hit her kind of hard. And not to help, her sister is kind of herself, and it's so kind of crazy. I low-key saw like similarities, and I'm a preface this because her little sister, Stephanie, is not like me whatsoever. If y'all go to read this, I am not saying this woman is like me. I do not act this way. I do not be out here like this. I am such a goody two shoes. Like, I know, I want to preface that. But the dynamic, like sisterhood, I think that's what I'm trying to say. The sisterhood between Sid and Stephanie, I could see kind of like how they were like interacting with each other, being like me and my sister, sort of. But anyways, because Stephanie was, I was worried about sis. I'm gonna kind of go at this like with everybody individually. Like their stories all kind of intertwine, of course, with each other, but I'm just gonna go like by each person, just so that way I don't get confused, because there's a whole lot of, and I have so many thoughts and emotions and feelings. And what I love about like when you do like the Kindle and you highlight or you do like annotations, it saves it on Goodreads. And I'm praying to God that when I have to return the book, or like when my time is up for the book, you know, I won't have it anymore. So like I'm really hoping that I'll still have my notes and annotations. I did screenshot a couple of things just for the sake of the video, but then also because I thought it was funny and I'm hilarious. But to continue on talking about Sid, truth be told, I'm not sure whose story I enjoyed more, or like whose growth I liked more. I feel like if we're talking like realistically, Sid is probably the only one who had like true growth within her, like throughout the course of the story. And I feel like stuff was like she was actively kind of like doing something. Basically, long story short, and of course, as y'all know, I'm not gonna do too much with spoilers, but give enough to where you get like a taste. So like I said, she's the maid of honor. This book is so messy, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just like it's going through my head and I'm like, who child? But Sid is the maid of honor to her little sister's wedding, and she gets there and all of them go to the same church. And so they get there and she meets Stephanie's fiance's brother. So her future brother-in-law, she meets him. I think his name is Cedric, which anyways, she meets Cedric and Stephanie's like, don't do it, girl. Like he's player, like he's just gonna like say what he needs to say, do what he needs to do. Don't fall for it. And so she's heeding her sister's warning, like, okay, I got you. But then it's also like, oh, dude showed up with a woman at the rehearsal. So she literally asking him like, who's old girl? Like, is that your girlfriend? Is that your fiance? Because he's asking her like, oh, you single and everything like that. And then this is also kind of messy. The sister's wedding is on Sid's birthday. Cedric finds out that Sid's birthday is the day of the wedding. So he's like, oh, like, what are you doing? Or da da da. And she's like, I'm gonna be at the wedding. Like, what do you mean? What am I doing? And then, you know, going home. And he's like, let me take you out. Like, I can do this. I know this good place. I can like do a reservation, da 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 da. And she's like, no, I'm good. But also like, you know, in that way where you're like, nah, I'm good. But like you are low key, like not feeling what he's saying, but you're just kind of like, you ask me again, I might say yes. And I was like, please don't say yes. And I mean, she said yes. It was kind of weird because at the wedding, he was with the woman, but then Sid and him, they were like dancing, and then how it was described, like they was up on each other and stuff. And I'm like, don't go on this dinner. Do not go on the dinner with this man. And she does, and like that went fine. But then he came into her house afterwards. I forget what they had did. I don't know if it was just like they were supposed to be watching a movie, but he's in there. And then lo and behold, they start kissing. I think as he was trying to leave, they start smooching on each other. And then what baffled me, I was like bombastic side eye, not even side eye, but like the recoil I had, like this did not just come out of this man's mouth. When it started going a little too, when it started getting a little too deep, you know, she pulled back. She was like, no, like, this is not okay. Like, I'm not gonna do this, da da da. And Cedric goes, oh, I want to make love to you. Like, just let it, da da da. You want to do what to me? That's a threat. It's a threat. You can't tell me otherwise. She should have called 911 because I met you however many, maybe a full 24 hours ago. This was not even a date. Like, you took me out for my birthday, but this was not a date. I barely know you, and you want to do what to me? But she was just like, no, like, I'm not finna have sex with you. Like, what do you mean? So that was kind of like the end of that night, and it was just like, whoo child, I'm already stressed out. Cause what I will say is Sid, while she did kind of have moments where she didn't stick to her boundaries, I feel like as strong as she could have, or I feel like in a lot of ways, I don't know if she didn't protect herself or her standards weren't just that high, because Cedric was kind of doing things that like Stephanie said that he would do. Like he was starting to go to church, like the same services as Sid, so he could be with her and sitting next to her. First of all, if we gonna be in church together, you not finna be nudging me, touching all up on me, whispering in my ear during church. No. If you don't face forward and listen to what the pastor's saying, first of all, why are you touching me? Second of all, I don't want to feel your breath like all right here. Like that's gross. Absolutely not. That's the first thing. If you're gonna go to church for yourself. Don't come to like my service and mess up the system I got, my seating row, just because you want some cookie, which you're not gonna get. Moving on. And so Cedric's going to the same church service as Sid, and the pastor suggests like doing this, not a Bible study, but like small groups with everybody. So of course, it's Sid, Stephanie, her now husband, Lynn, because I don't know how to say his name, God help me, Dana and her husband Scott, and then Phyllis and her husband Hayes. So it's all of them, and they're meeting at Sid's house, basically talking about like sexual immorality, sex in general, and like what the Bible says about it and things like that. That's like the topic that the pastor gave them to talk about. And as that's kind of going on, Cedric's trying to make moves. He was very much giving like player boy, like turned Christian. My problem with that is I really felt as though Cedric just was going through the motions, like he was doing the little Bible study small group thing for Sid, and he wasn't fully grasping like what her issue was. Even like when, and this set me off honestly, Lionel, I think that's how you say his name. I might be Lindell. His name's probably Lindell. My bad, dude. He was like, he wanted Scott to mentor him or whatever, and so with Cedric being Lindell's brother, it's like, you should, get a mentor too. But Cedric being messy and being a hoe, excuse me, he was like, Sid, like, you should be my mentor. And she's like, what? And I mean, he put it under the guise of like, like there's a lot I don't know about like, faith and Jesus and everything like that. So she's like, sure. And then this is where it gets messy, because he was trying to be like, okay, like, let's do it like tomorrow night. Like, oh, like we should do it over dinner. And she's like, we'll meet tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. in public. And he was trying to like do it at her place or something like that, like at night. And I'm like, you sneaky. No, she's not gonna get caught up just like how y'all were the other night when it got too freaky deaky. We're not doing that this time. So I love the fact that like she was like, no, we're gonna meet in the morning in public outside. But then would you believe that when it cut to like his point of view, like the day they're supposed to go, why is he in bed with this same woman who was not his girlfriend? And he was trying to play it off like she knew like what it was, and she was still trying to like play up that they were being together. And I'm like, so if she knew what it was, but like if y'all not really together, like why is she still around? Especially if you trying to say like you trying to be with Sid, why do you still have her around? Can't answer it, can you? My point exactly. I'm not gonna spoil it. I mean, it's a romance, so I'm sure you guys can imagine like what happens in the end. I feel like, just in general, I feel like this book's too short. 28 chapters, 29, whatever it is way too short for really what I needed and like the growth in these characters. Like I don't even know like when it was like official, like they were dating, but I know it was only a couple months after that when he proposed. And I'll give it to him, like he had his little moments like when it was coming up and like it seemed like they were getting more serious or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, you doing a little something, like, I wasn't rooting for them though. Now, that was Sid. Let's talk about Danny. Danny and Scott are married and they have 2 kids. So at the start of the story, I was kind of confused on what was going on with Danny, because she had called Sid and Sid was like, even like, she was like, what's going on? Like, you sound kind of like you're up there, like what's going on? So, and this is so funny, and I want a friend who's ride or die, because Sid was kind of giving like, oh no, like we shouldn't do this, da, da, da. I need someone who's gonna be like, girl, why didn't you tell me sooner? Like, I'll get the binoculars, like, let's go. Danny has this sickening feeling that her husband's having an affair, and so she goes and gets Sid, doesn't tell Sid what they're doing until like they're driving up, and she tells her like, this is what he's been doing, and like I'm kind of noticing these inconsistencies. And so they sneak into the house and she's looking around, and so far there's not really like any evidence. Like it might be little like that's weird, but it could just be like, it's just him at the house. Until Danny gets to the bedroom, that's where she finds her husband, and I believe the girl, I think she's staying on the choir or something, and you know, of course, in true fashion, Danny's going off like, how could you do this? And then it don't make it no better that Scott was like, I don't know if he was like the main person, but he was definitely like up there with like speaking over like the marriage group or like the marriage ministry, and it's like, now how are you gonna be the head of this ministry or like the main person that people talk to and like come to about like their marriage and stuff like that, and then you cheat on your wife with a 22-year-old who sings on the choir? Messy. And I will be completely honest with you guys, I was rooting divorce this whole book. I was rooting divorce for them. I was rooting divorce for Phyllis and Hayes, which we'll get into. I might have been a little too hasty, you know. It shouldn't just go straight into divorce, because in some cases, you know, when you get cheated on by your spouse, it's not always just like we're broken up. There are people who do stick it out and do forgive them, and it's like it made us stronger or better for, I'm not sure how, but I've never been married, so I can't say for sure like what I would actually do. I would imagine me just like knowing myself, it'd be like, yeah, like I can't stay with someone who would cheat on me. I've never been in that situation though, so who's to say how I would actually react. But it was just like, she never even like really considered it. Like she was kind of like, oh, like, you know, of course those initial things like, oh my gosh, like how could he do this and da 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 da. But to me, what it felt like was everybody was telling her, don't give up on your marriage. Like, don't give up on him. Like, yeah, of course, like he was wrong and da 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 da, but like, don't allow this one little thing to like jack up your marriage. Almost just like as if divorce was such like a bad thing. No one was really giving her good advice of like, or like really letting her feel and like express how she was feeling about the fact that her husband cheated on her. I really don't remember if old girl really expressed how she felt like throughout that whole situation. Cause yeah, you feel betrayed. And like, even like when he was like telling her like how it got started and everything like that, it was just like, okay, and so what am I supposed to... I hated that he kept touching her. I was like, you gotta give her some space, because I can't say that. My problem was, it felt like he was so like, I'm guilty, like shackle me up, take me to the dungeon, like I can't believe I did this to us. I'm so horrible. I'm just such a bad person, and I caused you this pain, and oh my gosh, I have to repent for my sins, and and it was like he wanted to be coddled. Like, that was a whole lot, but I promise you, that's what this man was giving for me. I was literally like, oh, okay, yeah, you caused this mistrust. You caused there to be a lack of like, there's no desire between the two of us anymore. Because even there was one point where he had tried to kind of like initiate a little bit of sexy time, and she was like, I'm not there yet. And then he immediately, not boohoo, but basically boohoo, like, you're right, like, I'm sorry, like, I can't believe, get out. I really don't think she went as hard as she really could have. And then, I can't say that, I'm trying not to give y'all spoilers, I really don't feel like they allowed each other to like grow. Because then like this thing has happened in our marriage, but since this thing has happened that you have caused, this is Scott, you've caused this thing in our marriage to shake things up and cause some dysfunction and everything. So now me as Dana and as the mother of our two kids and all this stuff, I now have to figure out not only what I need to do for myself, but also these two kids, and who am I now? Because you've low-key turned me into like this untrusting, like I'm like insecure and not really sure about myself anymore. You've turned me into this sort of person, and you're this guilt-ridden but still Christ-like and da-da-da-da or whatever sort of guy. Like, I don't even remember if they mentioned like going to counseling. I think they might have, but once again, the book is too short. It's way too short. I wanted them to get divorced. I don't really know who Dana is. I think that's my issue with Dana's part of the story. I feel like I don't know her besides like this thing. Her husband got in front of the congregation and outed what happened, and I was like, church folk are messy. They are, because I've been going to church my whole life. I feel like I can say this. A lot of these church folks out here are messy. They like to gossip. They like to smile in your face, be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that happened to you. Like, I'm da-da-da-da. Just so they can get information. So they can go out and gossip at brunch or be on the phone after church and be like, child, did you see what Tisha was wearing at church? They be doing that. They be. doing that. And so that wasn't a safe environment for her. I didn't like that for her. Like I said, I was really rooting for them to get divorced. I thought that was where the story was going. And honestly, I felt like it wouldn't have been that insane if they had of, because that does happen with Christian relationships too. Like, people don't just stay married after someone betrays them. And it wasn't like it was just one time and hanky-panky. Like, it was a full-blown affair that him and old girl were having. Yeah, and that brings me to Phyllis and Hayes, which is another couple who should have just gotten divorced. And honestly, I have a little bit of a with how the book is described, because it says that, like, Phyllis, you know, she's been praying for her husband, like 6 years praying for her husband to come to Christ, because when they got married, they had both grown up in the church, but like decided to like walk away from it and everything. And a little bit into like their marriage, she comes to Christ and she like decides to like rededicate. Whoa, what? She decides to rededicate her life, and like she's telling him like, oh my god, da, da, da. And he's like, yeah, not gonna happen. Like, I'm not going to church or whatever. They've got 4 kids now, and it's a whole thing still. It's like, I'm not going to church. And she's going away for some trip, and she's worried that like he's not going to take the kids to church, even though like they want to go. And like they're even asking her like, Mom, like, why doesn't he come to church with us? Does Dad hate God and all this stuff? At first, I was worried that this was going to be, she was a Christian, she married a non-Christian, and I was like, why would you do that? But it was like they were on the same playing field, and then she gave her life to Christ. I was like, okay, I understand. I'm with you now. You know, they there's this whole thing in the church where they talk about like being unequally yoked, and Phyllis and Hayes are unequally yoked. This man openly disrespected her and her faith to her face, in her friend's face, like complete like blatant disrespect. Like even the way like he was kind of being around the kids, like, or like saying how, because one of the oldest child, he was kind of saying that their relationship was starting to get strained because the son wanted him to go to church, or like wanted to be in church, and like dad was obviously like he didn't want to or whatever. So he was almost blaming like them going to church on the fact that their relationship being strained. It's like, maybe it's the fact that you are messy and you're childish, and I have to calm down. He was putting the blame on a lot of other things, and it was very much him and what was causing like the relationship with his son to be a little bit strained. But back to the book description, because that's what I was supposed to be talking about. It's saying that like, you know, she's been praying for him to like come to Jesus and everything. She goes on this trip, and it's supposedly like she meets like a long lost friend, which wasn't the case. He didn't even recognize her, didn't even know who she was okay. And so yeah, she meets this long lost friend or whatever who is a Christian, and it's kind of like like she has to figure out like what to do next and da da da. That is not what this is. I was rooting, once again, divorce. And I was like, this is going to be her actual love interest, like who she was supposed to end up with. Because that happens too with Christian, this happens just in general with relationships, period. But with people who are Christians, who are in the faith, that's also happens with them too. You get married to a person, you think this is your person, you've had kids, and it's like, this is who I love, obviously. But especially with something being as big as like we share 2 different like faith stances. Like, I'm a Christian, I believe in this thing, and you are so blatantly like against it to the point where you called it a cult. Yeah, I don't know how we can navigate even still being in a relationship when I've basically walked on eggshells around you and like been scared to even bring up church and like Jesus and everything around you. And so I've been so accommodating to you that you can't even go to an hour 30 church service for your kids. You can't even drop them off and go pick them up again. When she met old dude like at their little like, I think it was college reunion or whatever, I was actually really happy because I was like, this is perfect. He had 2 daughters, he was a widow. And is it widow for guys, or is widow only for women? That's not the point. But his wife had passed away. It was just like, oh my gosh, like this is great. And so I really thought it was gonna go down that route of like, she met this person and it was gonna be budding feelings, of course, like conflicted because I'm still married and I don't know what this is and da 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 da. But that's what I thought was supposed to happen. And that's not what happened. I was so disappointed. And it was a little messy. She had lied about going on a little trip. Like she said like it was just like she needed a trip to herself or whatever, but she really went and met up with old dude because he was somewhere, I think in Chicago. I don't know where the story takes place, don't remember, but I know he was in Chicago, and she drove 4 hours to go to whatever little hotel or event thing that he was at so they could meet up or whatever. They have dinner, and then afterwards she's like, oh, like we should watch a movie or whatever, like go back to your room or my room. And I respect him for this, because honestly, when they had first met, like at the little reunion thing, and he had drove her back to her friend's place, he was already kind of like, you know, like, I'm not sure about us exchanging numbers, like I like you, and this is just kind of like, I'm not sure. So I commended him for that. And they had only really talked twice since that time, and it wasn't anything crazy either, but them meeting up, having dinner or whatever, it could be told like, yeah, this is getting a little like and then us going back to like one of our rooms and like watching a movie, like it definitely could have gone somewhere that would have had you cheating on your husband, but then also making this man feel bad, because he's kind of getting like genuine feelings for her, and he obviously knows that like you're married and like it really wouldn't be able to be anything. And then even if it was, like, you're already starting off wrong by it being an affair. And so he's like, nah, like we're not gonna do that. And she goes and like boohoo cries, and I was like, Miss Girl, be so for real. But there was one thing, and actually I don't have to look it up because I know how to describe it enough, because it was a hot mess. They're talking about like, you know, he's a widow and like if he's getting back into dating or whatever. And she kind of references Sid, like, oh no, because he's like, you know, like there's not a lot of good Christian women out there who are single. And she's like, yeah, like I have a friend that mentioning Sid, and he's like, oh, like you should introduce me. And she has some little thing, and she's like, yeah, not gonna happen. And I was like, I think I put it like my notes, I was like, don't be blocking other people's blessings because you're married. Like, that's not Sid's fault. Because I feel like that would have been a perfect situation. Like, he has 2 daughters. Like, I could not have cared less about whether or not she was feeling him or felt some type of way about him, or like if he kind of thought he was feeling or whatever about her. That would have been perfect for Sid. Okay, so I found the actual like quotations on it. First of all, before she went on the trip, she goes, it says she could not wait to see Rod. That was the friend's name. And said, I was like, I'm happy too, but divorce your husband first. And then what he had said was, unfortunately, all the strong Christian women are taken. Basically talking about whatever her name is, Phyllis. And I said she doesn't have to be, with like the tongue out emoji in like all caps. And the whole thing, what I had said when I was like, don't block your friend's blessings. Like, don't block your friend's blessings. You're the married one out to dinner with a single man who you're sneaking around with and haven't told your husband about. Clock it. Cause what are you doing? He was so honest. Like, this whole little thing, Phyllis, you awaken things in me. Things I can't allow myself to feel. I care for you, and because I care, I know we can't go to my room to watch a movie. We shouldn't call or email either. I want what's best for your marriage. And I literally put, I love this man. Because some men would have been like, yeah, let's go watch a movie innocently. Like, what do you want to watch? And could have ended up in a whole situation by the morning. But he was literally like, I'm respecting you and your marriage. And then I think he also knew that like she didn't tell her husband that she was going to be there. Rod did not want those problems. And I love that he even drew the boundary of like, we shouldn't call or text anymore, like, or email anymore. I love that for him. And then she was boohoo, like all upset or whatever. And it was just like, girl, be so for real. This book is too short. I don't really feel like they had a resolve. Like, they're still together by the end of it. And it was kind of like, she had said that she had caught him picking up her Bible. Because then we find out like why he's so against like Christians and the church and everything. I have a lot of feelings about their marriage and how it was, because then it's different from like Dana and Scott, where like the kids weren't really affected by it. In this case, like the kids were affected. All my life, for me growing up, it's been both of my parents. Both my parents grew up in church, so they raised me and my siblings in the church. That's how I'm going to raise my kids. And so and honestly, we wouldn't get to husband if we were dating, or like you were trying to like court me, talk to me, and you aren't really serious about your faith. You just wouldn't have a chance, period. And so my husband being a leader and being a man of God, like you're gonna raise up your house and be diligent in taking your kids to church. And I feel like that wasn't a big ask of Hayes, just to take the kids to church. And he was so like hard-headed, like about spazzed out, just to do that. And the only reason why he even went to the church service too at that was because it was he had gotten the phone call, and it was the service when Scott was gonna like admit what he had done. That's the only reason why he wanted to go, was to just be like, oh yeah, look at that, like this Christian man, you're talking about marriage and all these things and stuff like that, and you still walked out on your wife. Or he didn't walk out, but you stepped out on your wife. He was just being messy. That's why he wanted to go, and that's why he was there. All these women deserve better. Cedric, he's okay, I guess. I'm okay with Dana and Scott, I think, but Phyllis and Hayes, I don't have the patience, honestly. I feel like if this book was like 10 more chapters, we really could have gotten like their stories like really fleshed out. Relationship wise, I wasn't, the romance part of this book I was not rocking with. The Christian part, you got me, babe. Everything else I was just like, okay, like I guess. And it's crazy that I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave it 4 stars because it was such a fast read, and despite my nitpicks about it, it was still a good read. Like it wasn't anything where I was like, oh, like I don't believe their love. Do I think things were rushed? Absolutely. But it wasn't anything where I was like, oh, I'm about to DNF this book. It's probably more so like 3.5, but you can't do halves on Goodreads, so I have to do either 4 or 3. I was just like, okay, 4, that's fine. For a book that I only read in a couple of hours, I mean, why not? Okay guys, so that is my book review on Faithful by Kim Cash Tate. This is my first book by her, so we will see if I add more of her books in rotation. This book is messy. I feel like that's the biggest thing I got from this book. It's messy. It's good, but it's messy. It's holy, but it's messy. Which, not all things in Christianity and walking a life with Christ is perfect. Yeah, and that's pretty evident with like all the girls, and like something that like they are reminded of, in how like, you know, dealing with the fact of like, especially like Phyllis, like I've been praying for my husband, my friend's been praying for my husband, and it seems like nothing's been happening. Like God has been like ignoring me, which God doesn't answer prayers immediately. That's the problem that like Christians run into. And I'm not trying to get holy on or like start preaching or anything, but like it was a lot of lessons I learned from this book, and I believed it was really, really good. And that I feel like that's kind of why I gave it 4 stars, or I would consider giving it the full 4, not just 3.5. Would I read it again? I'm not sure. I don't think I want to go through the chaos. Would I recommend it for a quick read? Sure. All right guys, so that's the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Quick update on my reading. I'm currently reading Monday's Not Coming, and I'll be honest, I'm a little confused. Just a little bit, but hopefully I'll have this finished by Monday. I also got 2 new books, which I'm super excited about. I have The Art of Loving You, which is the 2nd book of the Forever Falling series by Natasha Bishop, and then I've got The Princess Bride, the part 2, and that one's the second one to The Princess Bride by JJ McAvoy. Also a disclaimer, when you see me, especially look this way during like the recording, this whole recording process was very hard because I have continually lost storage on my phone. So that's why it might seem like I'm kind of like talking really fast to get out my words before I lose storage again. So anytime I'm looking over here, I'm looking at the mirror, which shows me the reflection of my phone so I can see if it stopped recording, because the last thing I want to do is be talking and it stopped and I don't notice, and I've lost who knows how much footage and I don't know where I left off basically. So that's why I keep glancing over here to make sure, because now I have anxiety, and so I just want to make sure. With these new reads coming up, make sure you guys are following me on my social media platforms at KAYLA SIERRA to stay up to date, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel and share this with all your friends. I've been KAYLA SIERRA, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.